Wednesday. How's everybody doing? Welcome to today's Daily Distinction. So glad that you are here. Thank you for taking time to do this. I don't do this often enough. Thank you if you're watching the replay. I always thank the folks that are on live, and I'm truly grateful that you carve out time to be here live, but a lot of folks watch on the replay. So if you're doing that, thank you. Please share. The sharing works whether you're live or on replay. You can replay this and you can share it. You can do it any way you want, but I appreciate the sharing. Charles, I've noticed that you've been sharing a lot lately. So if you're watching live or on replay, I appreciate it. Brian, you're another one. Thank you so much. First in wins. You got it, man. You are here every day. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the sharing that you do the program. That's how we keep growing, is that you folks are kind enough to share. You folks are kind enough to keep coming back and you're sharing. And I appreciate that more than you know. It's truly, truly great to have you here. We got a challenging topic for today as well. And it's the future. What happens to business after we get through this? I'm going to be focusing a lot on retail, not because all of us that watch here are retailers, not by a long shot, but because I think many times retail kind of helps us predict, because it's the basis of what we do. It's the economy's based on it. So, hey, Charles from the semi-clean air Silicon Valley, I hope it is cleaning up a bit there. Holy cow, that's just amazing. And Scott, I've been worried about you. I've been wondering how you're doing down there. I saw some of the flooding in Pensacola today, and I've just been wondering how you're doing and what's okay. I'm glad to know that you survived flooding. I hope not too much damage for you there. Hope not any damage, but hope things are all right there. Good grief. I was worried about you. That's the first thing I thought when I saw all the water and everything in Pensacola, that all that's going on down there. My mom lives most of the year in Bradenton, and on other side, I know, but good grief. It's just really been hit hard this year. So thinking about you. Hey, by the way, everybody, don't forget the summit is coming up. I know several of you have already signed up for it, and I'm grateful for that. I keep mentioning it because it's, today is September 16th, which means we are 1 month away from Stand Out, Earn More, the Distinction Summit, just 30 days away. Join us, won't you? It's October 16th through 18th. It is a deep dive into what it takes to stand out. Pam, thank you. I did a program this morning for the National Speakers Association. My friend Lou Heckler asked me to join him, and we talked for an hour about what's going on in the world. So thank you. I appreciate that. Glad that you enjoyed that. So Scott, that's near where your sister is. I didn't realize that's where she is. So the Distinction Summit is coming up. All you need to do to register is go to distinctionsummit.com. distinctionsummit.com. That will get you there. And when you register, all you need to do is to add the code. The code is Distinct 2020. Gets you $100 off your registration. That's right, $100 off, which means for a general admission ticket, it's under $100 to go to the 2.5-day program. That's a steal. And we're going to start announcing next week some of the great guest speakers that we have. And we've got some winners. I mean, some folks you are really going to enjoy hearing. So go there, register now. Hope to see you there. And look forward to seeing you there at Distinction Summit. Brian, I'm pumped that you're going to be there. Thank you. Glad you're there. All right, let's talk about the future of business. Let's talk about retailing. Let's talk about what's going to happen after this happens. Now, regardless of when you think that might be, whether it's going to come back one way or the other, or we got to wait for a vaccine, or whatever, we know that there are lessons that we should have learned through this that we need to be thinking about. So let me share with you some retailers. Lord & Taylor, Brooks Brothers, Neiman Marcus, Sur La Table. I've heard that pronounced Sur La Table, like French. Any idea what the four of these have in common? Major retailers, names that we know: Lord & Taylor, Brooks Brothers, Neiman Marcus, Sur La Table. Here's what they all have in common. This year, all have declared bankruptcy. In fact, Lord & Taylor is closing all of its stores. It was, by most accounts, America's first department store. And now they're closing all of their stores after almost 200 years in business. And they're gone. Now, why? Well, we can attribute it to a lot of things. We can say Amazon. We could say, what's happening in terms of shopping. Yep, Bruce, that's exactly it. They're all Chapter 11. And Lord and Taylor closing, right? So why is that? And what can we learn from that? A very interesting report by McKinsey, who McKinsey is pretty much considered to be, if not the top, one of the top 3 consulting firms in the world. And McKinsey estimates that because of the pandemic, the acceleration of customer adoption of e-commerce, it's advanced as much as 10 years in a few months. In other words, I remember when ATMs, I first came to Crothersville, Indiana, and my grandmother wouldn't have anything to do with it, right? Because how did that machine know? She wanted to get money in her hand from a teller, or she wanted to put her check in the hand of a teller. You didn't stick it in a machine. You had to talk to a person, and a person's who handled it. And now, not only do we not even think about using an ATM, now it's almost as if I don't want to touch cash. I want to, I just want to use my phone. I'll pay with this. Let me wave this over something. I don't want to touch. Isn't that crazy? We've gone to the point, from the point of, in one lifetime, we've gone from, I don't trust the machine, to I don't want to talk to or touch people. I mean, it is just the biggest change ever. I told the story on occasion about my grandmother, who was born before the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk and passed away many years after, she saw a man walk on the moon. One lifetime. And what's ahead of us? Think of all you've seen in your lifetime, and what's next? What's coming? What's the future? And here we are at a point where the adoption of e-commerce at the level of what most people thought was going to take a decade now has happened within just a few months. The same consultants say that Crate and Barrel developed and deployed more new processes and procedures in the first 2 months of the pandemic than had in the previous 2 years, because they were looking for a way to connect with e-commerce. So here it seems to me to be a big aha, right? Everything's moving towards e-commerce. Everything is moving towards this. Look, you and I would never have had the chance to communicate every day like this just a few short years ago. And now some of you make a schedule to catch this for a few minutes every day at 3:00 Eastern or noon Pacific, or you watch the replay if you're doing that. And we have ways of communicating and connecting that just a few short years ago would have been totally impossible. Now we take it for granted. And if we see these retailers, those who have been successful in e-commerce, moving to higher levels of success, and those who aren't doing it, like Lord & Taylor and Brooks Brothers and Neiman Marcus, that are failing, what does that mean? We call this a clue. It means it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what business that we're in. We have to be willing to figure out, how do we move to a more virtual e-commerce kind of way? Charles, truly a shame, COVID and changes in shopping patterns by all of us. Yeah, it's so true. And thousands of mom and pops have disappeared, and plenty of restaurants. And there you go. Because the mom and pops disappeared. And see, here's part of why distinction is so important. And I'm going to talk a lot more about this in a month. But, when the supermarket came into our small community in Indiana, and my mom and dad had the only grocery store, and the supermarket was going to put us out of business, and they didn't. And in fact, the supermarket closed and left town. The fundamental question was, how, and my dad didn't have a business degree, he didn't have a college degree, but what he did have was this: how do we do our thing and not let them dictate to us. And what I see happening with so many of these mom and pops, it was really interesting. One of the things my dad observed is that when a big retailer came in, the local mom and pop tried to match everything the big retailer did. And here, just one example would be that the big retailer would be open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., where the local store was probably open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? So what did they do? They went from being open 8 hours a day to 12 hours a day. But to keep their overhead down, that meant that the person that owned the store tended to work longer hours, which meant that the person is tired and exhausted and trying to run their business and nervous about their future. And how do you deliver a great customer experience when that's how you're feeling? I mean, you can some, but can you consistently? And especially when every person that comes in the store says, "Man, you're looking tired. Are you okay?" And all of that happens. So how do we fight this? How do we combat this? And what is the loss of these retailers telling us about what we need to think about our business, whether you're in real estate or you're driving a truck or you're involved in other types of professional services or whatever it might be. So I put together 4 things that I think we all should be looking at. Me too. I mean, we all need to be looking at this, because I don't think there's going to be, this isn't going to be like they're going to cut a ribbon when they open a bridge. It's not going to be that we cut a ribbon and all of a sudden, hey, COVID's over. Well, here we go, right? And everything gets back to normal just like that. It's going to be fascinating to see this evolution and process that we go through, because it's changing so much and so dramatically. So here's just a few things that for all of us in business, I think we need to be thinking about. Number 1, how do we make it more contactless? I don't mean that you don't have contact with your customer, but what are things that you could do to eliminate the requirement of face-to-face interaction? Because in many businesses, we've kind of required face-to-face interaction. If you're a financial advisor, for example, there are compliance regulations about being in person to communicate with. Okay, so how do we stay compliant yet find ways to eliminate that? Are there things that we could do that will reduce the requirement of being face-to-face, being in contact? I saw that my great friend Jason Bradshaw posted on LinkedIn about the extraordinary work that Volkswagen Group Australia has done in terms of now selling cars online, creating a system so that you could look at the car and see the car and you could buy the car online. Who would have ever thought about that? Oh gosh, Jason just said hello. Hey, Jason, I'm talking about you here. But my gosh, it's 5:15 a.m. What are you doing up at 5:15 a.m.? Good to see you. But what an incredible thing. Now, who would have thought, a year ago that you'd even be faced with the challenge of, we've got to figure out how people can buy a car online. Now, there were some here in the States, there were some things like Carvana that were trying to figure that out so that they could eliminate that. But man, it wasn't a priority until now. So for whatever your business is, what can you do now to think about how do we have less face-to-face contact? But notice the flip side of this coin. It means the virtual contact that we have, it's got to be more personal, and it's got to be more connected, and it's got to be more compelling, and it has to be delivered more effectively. So we need to understand, how do we deliver effective and compelling and emotionally engaging communication virtually, so that even though there's not the face-to-face interaction, that contactless doesn't mean without connection. Does that make sense? It might be contactless, but it doesn't mean we don't have connection. Quick example, my pal Jade Bear and I were talking. He said, one of the things I've realized through this is I really don't need to have a conversation with my pizza delivery guy. Now, it doesn't mean that to sound bad or wrong, but really there's no need to have face-to-face interaction with somebody who's delivering a pizza. They can leave it at the door and ring the doorbell. However, notice the pressure that puts on, Domino's or Pizza Hut or whoever you're ordering pizza from to find ways virtually to express their appreciation, because the delivery person isn't going to be handing you a pizza saying, thank you for ordering from Pizza Hut, right? So how does Pizza Hut make this so it's contactless, but yet it's emotionally engaging? Something they got to think about. Hey, it's something you and I have to think about. Charles, yeah, and there's the way the technology is working for us. You can sign paperwork electronically. So, and there you go. You've got to have, Mike, yes, exactly. Contactless with connection. That's what you folks have to have in Illinois, and that's what, it's what Brooks Brothers needed. How could you buy a suit online? How do we have it so that you could buy a suit, feel comfortable that the measurements were going to be right, but yet you don't have to come to the store? We all have to be worried about this regardless of what our business is. Very great to see you. I'm glad you're here today. Thank you. Okay, so contactless is number one. Here's second, frictionless. How do we eliminate the hassle of doing business with you? Have you gone to your own website and tried to order something? How hard is it to do business with you? So what we have to do is to eliminate the hassles, because people aren't going to put up with it anymore. If as we talk about how do you create distinction, part of the way that you create that distinction is to be easier to do business with. I'm one click away. The more you make it just one click, then the greater the likelihood is I'm going to buy. But boy, oh boy, have you been on these sites where you click here and then it takes you somewhere else, then you got to click again to think about how I'll tell you one that bothered me yesterday. Jason, I'll bet you've already bought it. Jason and I always joke, anytime Apple has a event, it's almost like a horse race to see who orders, the new stuff from Apple first. And by the way, I've not ordered the new watch yet, but I checked on it, right? So I go online and you've got to sign in, right? I mean, I've signed in and it said, now, if you'd like to trade in your current Apple Watch, and I thought, well, if I was going to get a new one, I would trade. I wonder where I could get on trade-in. So and it asks you to go here on your watch, and then you go here on your watch. And then at the third thing that you've done, now you can find the serial number. Please type the serial number in. And so here you are on your Apple Watch trying to figure out how you get to the serial number on your watch. And then you have to, as you're holding your watch, you're trying to type it with one hand to figure out how much they're going to give you on a trade-in. I've already signed in. I've registered the watch. Why couldn't they have a little box that comes up and says, you currently own this Apple Watch. Is this the one you're going to trade in? Click. We'll give you this for the watch. It'd make it so much easier. But by the time I got the serial number in and everything done, I kind of gave up on it. What? You haven't placed your order with Apple this time? Oh man, I am shocked. Neither you nor I. So by the way, if you own Apple shares, sell, because when Jason Bradshaw and Scott McCain don't buy the first day of products, I think their stock is going down. And there you go. He went to order at 4:05. The site was open, but kept airing out. So he just moved on. There you go. Yes, exactly, Jason. That's it. That's exactly it. So why didn't they make it easier for the customer? That's what Apple is supposed to be the best at, but they didn't with this. Yeah, automated customer service can be very frustrating, Larry, no doubt about it, because it doesn't seem to have the connection in many cases. Hey, Sonia, great to see you. Your fourth favorite day of the week. Darcy, easier to walk away from one business with whom it's a hassle to do business and go to the competition. The path of least resistance. Yes, less friction. Yeah, exactly, Charles. There have been virtual measurements for years. Yeah, you're so right. Oh, you got a new iPad Air with your name on it. I get it, Brian. I've been tempted. I got to tell you. So we got contactless, we got frictionless. Here's number three, and this is an interesting one. Think about appointment centered. For example, if there is a requirement to meet face to face, how could customers review options online, then make a final decision at a scheduled time in person? See, could Brooks Brothers have sold more suits if they let you select the suit online and then you scheduled an appointment at Brooks Brothers and you went in and the suit was ready and the suit is there as you enter and they have a dressing room awaiting you because you have the 12:30 appointment and you go in at 12:30, they have the suit ready, you try it on, they got your credit card on file. If you like it, it's done. As opposed to hanging on to, oh, you got to come to the store, you got to look at all this selection. Why do we have to look at all that selection? If I can make those decisions online and then just go to the store and try it on and buy it or not, and you prepare for the appointment. Don't get me started. I got this thing on LinkedIn today, and I'd mentioned that the new book that we got, the premiere copies of it and the test copies, and the book's going to be coming out. It was going to come out in October. Now it's coming out in January. And so somebody wrote me and said, do you need a PR firm to work with you on the book? And I thought, well, that's really nice. And I said, well, I'd be interested to hear what they had to say. And then she writes back and says, have you ever published a book? What? See, I have to admit, I assumed that because, I had talked about this and folks are real nice and wrote about it and sent me some nice notes on social media. And I thought, hey, maybe they saw that. So and I just wrote back and said, well, 7 with major publishers so far. The fact that they didn't prepare made me think, then why would I want them to do my publicity if they haven't prepared? If they won't prepare in the sales process, it doesn't make me confident that they'll be prepared in the execution, right? If you're not prepared in the process of trying to sell a customer, why do I think that you'll be prepared in the execution of what I've hired you to do? Zero preparation. And that's part of why we have shied away from appointment-centered communication like this, is because as customers, we get to the appointment and they're not ready for us. So only do that if you're willing to be ready to communicate. Jason, I love this. Automate the task and not the human connection. See, there you go. That is exactly it. How do we use technology to automate the task and use human beings to enhance the connection? Brian, no matter how simple businesses are committed to what they do, it can always be improved. Yes, we can always get better. The overall customer experience is what is at stake. Charles, yes, they were iconicless. I had the dirty little thought that I would have loved to just have sent her the book and said, read this before you blow any other sales opportunities. Here's the fourth one: pre-order and subscription. So how can customers be assured that you'll have what they want when they want it? Well, I want to suggest a couple of ways. Number one is the ability to pre-order. When the pandemic hit, man, try to buy some of the things to have as a home studio. Everything was out of stock. Yet one of my favorite places, B&H Audio and Video. B&H is a store in Manhattan, but they do global shipping, and I love them so much better than Amazon because they stay in touch with you. Sweetwater is another one that's great for audio. They're based in Fort Wayne, and they have some of the best customer service on the planet. So you pre-order. They say, hey, this is coming out. We know it's going to be popular. We are trying to figure out how many we're going to get. Would you like to go ahead and pre-order? Or would you like to subscribe so that it's really interesting to me. One of the things that Porsche has done is to create basically a Porsche subscription, so that you get the car that you want when you want it and you subscribe to it. And, it's not a bad, it's not inexpensive, but when you take what your payment would be and then you add the license plates and insurance, which are included when you do the subscription deal, it's not a bad deal. When you compare it with what you'd be paying for the Porsche. So it's fascinating to think of subscribing to a car or pre-ordering the equipment that you want so that you know you're going to get it. So how are you doing that as a part of your business as well? But see, sometimes when we automate, we frustrate. Where Tammy got a car, sent her, and she's had the car now 3 years. And they sent her an email saying, if you'd like to upgrade, we can get you in a lease of this model. But the only problem was, first of all, we were financing the car. I typically lease through the business, but we finance her car. So we didn't want to get in a lease, but it was a step down. So evidently they think a new car that's a step down is better than your existing car, which kind of says it's kind of derogatory about what you're already driving. Wouldn't you say, how would you like to go from what you're currently driving that's 3 years old into something new? Why do you have to take me down a notch? And it's not knowing your customer. So when we automate things, sometimes we make these unintentional mistakes. And these unintentional mistakes, from the company's perspective, from the organization's perspective, man, we're just churning this out. We've automated this. Isn't that great? We've got it automated. As a customer, all of a sudden you kind of go, wait a minute, you don't know me. I thought you knew me. And we create this disconnection. So part of what we have to think about for the future of business is, how do we eliminate the requirement of face-to-face interaction while still not eliminating the connectivity that we have with customers? Secondly, how do we eliminate the hassle of doing business with us? Third, how can we let them make early decisions online and then have them be thrilled when they pick it up or try it on or conclude the process in person, so that we eliminate a lot of the challenge of getting them to come in and select in a time where face-to-face is not valued as much as it is previously. And then how do we use pre-order and subscription to continue to engage our customer, to make certain that they get what they want when they want it all the time? All of that is absolutely critical. Yeah, Pam, they do. Sweetwater is extraordinary with the customer service. They're the best. Darcy, here's a big one. The Indianapolis Convention Center is expanding because they think the convention business will be back to essentially the same way in-person conferences in the future. I saw that. It worked building the Hoosier Dome before the Colts came to Indy. Build it and they will come. I talked about this in my post-pandemic events course that I know, Darcy, you're very familiar with. I believe that hybrid events are here to stay. I think that when we're able to get people together, that we will. However, to have these big trade show, convention, conferences that's going to bring 25,000 people in for the convention, man, that scares me. Darcy, I don't mean to be political about this at all in any way, but I think the money of taxpayers in Indianapolis would be better spent upgrading the connectivity that a tourist could have, or that a small convention could have, so that you could bring 500 people to Indianapolis and have the world's leading connectivity and streaming studio, all of that, so that you could beam it all over the world more easily, more rapidly, more conveniently than you could anyplace else. It's challenges. That's harder to do than building more space. But I hope the best, but I see that not being the right direction. Charles, what's the other company you mentioned along with Sweetwater? It's it's the ampersand, B&H Photo Video. B&H Photo Video. Well, that's it. That's what we need to be thinking about and looking forward to, because business is changing. Hey, here's a shocker. If business is changing, guess what? We got to change too. We're going to keep talking about some of the changes that we all need to make, regardless of the size of our business, on the next Daily Distinction. Hey, thanks again for joining in from all over the world, Australia to Indiana to California to Florida. Golly, we're everywhere today. Thank you for being a part of it. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow, same time, right here on the next episode of Daily Distinction.